Hi guys, so from today we are going to create a whole new series on AWS services and Terraform. So we will see how these AWS services works and how we can automate these AWS services and deploy it on the AWS console through Terraform scripts, so something like automation. So let me show you what the AWS services we are going to cover in this series is are Lambda, SNS, simple notification service, simple email service, simple queue service, API Gateway, CloudWatch, IAM, and simple storage service. I'm not going to cover the other services like EC2, the security groups, VPC, and the other things because I have some agendas to cover in this series. So based on those agendas, these services are required. So I'm also going to cover the Terraform as well with these services, how we can automate these services through Terraform and deploy it on AWS console. So we will see. So let's talk about the agendas to be covered in this series. So I have categorized these agendas into chapters. So the first chapter is basics, and the first thing we are going to do in the basic is to create a Spring Boot application for AWS Lambda and deploy it on Lambda. So to deploy it on Lambda, we need Lambda. So we will create Lambda on AWS console, both manual and by automation process Terraform. We after creating Lambda, we will deploy our Spring Boot application on AWS Lambda. Then we will create a AWS Spring. Then we will create a Spring Boot API and test it on the Lambda. And the last thing in this chapter is to create a API gateway for AWS Lambda to call that API from Postman or some other services like any other UI interfaces. So this is the chapter one basics, and this is the flow chart of the chapter one. So when the user hits an API of the of let's say when the user hits the HTTP request, so the request goes to the API gateway and the API gateway routes the request to the Lambda. Then Lambda, which has the Spring Boot application deployed on it, invokes the application. The Spring Boot application handles the logic and returns the response to the Lambda. So when the Lambda gets the response, the Lambda send back the response to the API gateway, and the API gateway send the response to the user. Let's talk about the second part, second chapter, the sender. After successful response from the API, we need to send a message to the SNS. So SNS is nothing but a simple notification service, a messaging queue. Okay, so we use Kafka, we use RabbitMQ, but in AWS we use simple notification service. So it's very simple and it's very simple to use as well. So let's talk about this, what we are going to cover in this chapter 2. So the sixth topic is to create a SNS on AWS console because this is required. When the SNS topic is created, we will create some logic to send the message on the SNS topic from our Spring Boot application in some JSON format. Okay, and the point 7 only works when you give your Lambda to SNS permission. Okay, so our Lambda requires some permissions because the Lambda is not calling all the services in the entire AWS. Okay, so it requires permissions. So yeah, the Lambda, you have SNS permission, yeah, then you can call. You have some SQS permission, yeah, then you have call. So it will not call the whole services, all the services of AWS console without having some permissions on it. So we will provide some SNS permission on the AWS Lambda. And now the message is sent successfully. Um, we will check the CloudWatch logs whether it is sent successfully or not. We need some subscriber to receive the message from the SNS, right? So you have sent the SNS, you have sent the message on the SNS. Now who is going to subscribe it? So for the subscriber in this series we will use SQS, we will use our emails, we will use Lambda. Okay, so it's these three subscribers we are going to use in this series. The third chapter is a receiver. Okay, so message is sent successfully. Now we will create SQS to and subscriber SNS topic, both manual and Terraform script. I'm going to cover in this. After creating SQS, we'll create AWS Lambda. And see the point 10, creating SQS is just for the knowledge. It is not required in our agenda. I am showing how to create it in both ways, but we are not required for a SQS. Okay, so I will create a AWS Lambda that receives the message from SNS. Okay, and for that we will create a trigger. We will see how we will create the trigger while doing hands-on. After that, we will use AWS Lambda to receive SNS message via Spring Boot application. And when the message received, we'll perform some task based on that message. Okay. So the chapter 4 contains some enhancement part. So what we are going to cover in this, we will create a S3 bucket, and then we'll take a zip file. We will create an extract API on the application and save the data into S3. This is important because we have some configuration to do in the API gateway. That's why I have taken the zip file. And once the zip file extraction API is extracted and the data is saved into the S3, we will send the user that the file is extracted. You can download that file. So we will give the download link through the email, and for that we will use the email template. That is the enhancement part. I mean, it is not required to use the same like I'm using. Okay, and the fifth chapter is the bonus. So the bonus is based on your comments. So what are the services and what are the agenda um, you need to be covered in this topic in this series. Okay, so I'm waiting for your comment. I hope you enjoyed this video. So don't forget to like this video and please subscribe my channel and leave a comment below. So I'll be sharing this PDF with everyone who comments on the video and sends me an email. My email ID is included in the description. So make sure to check that out. And thank you guys for the support.